Science Math eventually ended up taking over the entire Science Math building, and we got sent down to Lower Campus in one of those trailers. I think it was Q building. Oh my goodness, this was a sight to see. They painted it, it looked good, but nobody ever thought about the drywood that was underneath the carpet. And you had to have experienced it. One time Dixie walked in and her desk was curved because the floor had caved in. And one time one of the secretaries came and looked at her glass. Unfortunately, she looked in before she drank from it that morning. And there was a little mouse that had been just, running all night long so it wouldn't fall into the 2 inches of water that was left behind. But I have to say the closeness that we had, it was some tough conditions of how we lived, the locations of where we were. But still, we were a dynamic faculty, and it was wonderful. After a year of working and then going on to get a tenure status, I thank God every day when I drove onto campus because I knew that I had received a wonderful opportunity. I have so many fond memories, and I would say they're a combination of maybe 3 or 4. And I have to say that I've always appreciated the leadership. We are a fortunate campus where we had dynamic people. I think I've been through 8, 9 presidents, and not as many chancellors, but even the board members. They were caring and they communicated with us. We didn't have the technology. You went to your mailbox to get a message from someone. And all the departments cared about each other. We weren't so separated as we are now. It's like the old-time physician that you went to, and he took care of all of you. And now you go to specialists. And back in those days, we were all together. We had specialties, but it seemed like we always blended. And from the hay rides that Constance Carroll, I don't know how she invented those, but we did some crazy fun things, and everybody was there, and we knew each other from first names. So then I go to the staff. The staff at Saddleback College are sometimes the pillars that hold us together. I had wonderful secretaries. We had wonderful, from the people who were on the grounds. I knew the groundskeepers, and I knew the security officers because I would leave late at night. And I just appreciated the kindness that came from all of the staff members. And I appreciate the faculty, not only my nursing faculty, because those 8 or 9 faculty that we had, I will never forget them. I will never forget the mentorship. And then in the 80s and 90s then Donna died in 1984, and that was very hard for all of us. I had never seen so many people come to a memorial. McKinney Theater was just full. I am thankful for the other departments that we have on campus. Don Rickner and I, we put together community events. And I'm sure he thought that I was really far out. Holistic health was in vogue then, and I brought Ram Dass on campus. And I told Don, we've got to spend money to make money. And we were a 2-man team, and we ended up bringing over 2,500 people to see him one night. We actually had to send people away from the gymnasium because of the fire codes. It was fun. I remember Doyle McKinney calling me a little witch because I started believing, and really Del Eschbach sent me to many conferences where I realized that it wasn't just medicine that would help you. It was the body, mind, and spirit. And then I really appreciate the students. At my retirement dinner, a student had written a letter. She was now in North Carolina, and she made the comment that of all the people we nursing faculty had touched, we had created a village. And I believe those students now have become my village.
I look back, and this is kind of what we all get into, I think. We started small, and really just temporary, so-called temporary, buildings that I know still exist, and we knew they probably would. And it was the closeness and the smallness of it all that was my fondest memory of it all. Because unlike today, we all knew each other. There wasn't that many people to know. And it was very intimate, even with the students, because we weren't large at that time. That was my fondest time of all. Here sometimes we're so big now and large that we hardly know most anybody. You know. We were all friends. So there was a great exchange between all departments, which hardly we only see each other sometimes at a meeting, but then we're always exchanging information, ideas. Yeah.
Can you talk about?
I'll tell you one of the fondest things I remember is Jim Thorpe, who was head of the science division, or at least the mathematics division, but a real Renaissance kind of guy. And he got talking about Shakespeare. And I said, well, why don't you do something here? And pretty soon he's in a play, because there was somebody, I forget, in the English department started Shakespeare things going. And we had a Shakespeare play, and there is Jim Thorpe, mathematician, doing some sort of Shakespeare role. And it was very, very nice. And in the fine arts department, you know, they hate to admit it, but we're both, take athletics and fine arts, we're both in performance. They hate to hear this. And, you know, in fact, I would say, you know, in a way, your performance is a bit, you know, artificial because you're acting. Our performance is real because we're right out in the field doing it. But that's how we would tease each other. So I got to be friends with them. And got a lot of those people, in the fine arts particularly, that came down to the yoga and Tai Chi classes. Because they have that more aesthetic, open, right brain, creative kind of look at things. Yeah. Right off the bat, of course, we were from a fine area academically. Let's face it, this area pretty much where parents are interested in their children getting education. So academically, we were always, I think, good right off the bat. But if we're going to take a more special thing, athletically, yeah, we were small. But what happens if you get in the right league when you first start in athletics, then you've got a chance to build on that. If you start in a large league and you're small, sometimes they take all the spirit out of you, and the teams never get better. So our challenge, at least in our department, was to get leagued correctly with teams about our size, and we had great success. In fact, we've always had great success here by and large because of the nature of the kids that come in. And that was our particular challenge. In a larger vein, we had, when we were smaller, of course, you know, we had to get creative in the kinds of courses we wanted to teach, and there was a lot of kind of overlapping of courses and whatever. And the students didn't nearly have the number of choices they have today. So we were all kind of overlapping in a way. Now the challenge is, you know, just getting in. I mean, just take a look how difficult sometimes it is for people to sign up and get in, even though, you know, most people are literate, computer literate. But our challenge is like everything, when you get a lot of people. You know,
As a student, this is way back in the early 70s, Brad Box. And Brad was quite a character. He was kind of a mountain man. Drove an old pickup truck, lived on a dirt road up off the Ortega Highway. His family was in the beekeeping business. Brad was the kind of guy who'd cut school on the first day of deer season, things like that. Things were a lot more rural going back 40 years around here. And anyway, one day, I think it was kind of a cold, wintry day, we had a little cafe on lower campus, and there was a food truck. So you'd go out, you get something from the food truck, and you'd sit in the cafe and eat it. And I walked in, Brad, it was before class, and Brad was sitting there, and so I went over, hi, Brad. And we were talking, having a cup of coffee. I think we had an early morning geology class with John Minch. And Brad must have seen me wrinkle my nose because he had this big grin. And he said, smell something? I said, yeah. And he said, it's skunk. Then he proceeds to tell me the story. He'd been coming to work, and he's going down this dirt road in his pickup truck, and he sees a skunk. And Brad's Brad. He jumps out of his truck and he chases the skunk. Now that's not a real smart thing to do, but Brad's a country boy, and he said, but I kept about 20 foot back. I just wanted to see where he was going. Well, skunk did its little hop, and up went the tail. And he almost missed Brad. So Brad got hit with a few drops. So it was the kind of thing where it wasn't overpowering, but you'd pick it up. And I said, okay, that's real interesting, Brad. And we went to class, geology class with John Minch in Building E. Building E was a little prefab. Like I see you still have Building T across the way. It's amazing how those buildings never go away. There was 2 classrooms, one for geology, one for physics, with a little prep room in the middle. And we were in class, and that was about the end of it. And then next class was physics in the other end of the building. I went down there, and Bob Parsons was up there lecturing away about something. And about halfway through the class, the door opens, and in walks Val Cooper. Val Cooper was the lab tech over in chemistry and biology. And Val just walks in. He's got this glass apparatus in his hand. And he starts walking around the room, and he's squeezing this rubber bulb, and this mist is coming out of this apparatus. And Bob says, Val, what are you doing? And Val says, I heard you had a skunk over here. Well, what Val is doing is he has a atomizer full of oil of citronella, which is fairly strong fragrance. And I guess he thought that that would mask the skunk, which nobody was really smelling at that point. So Bob's a big guy. I think you interviewed Bob a while ago. Bob goes over and he kind of guides Val back out the door. Say, no, that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. And it was amazing. But then to top it off, after class, we're leaving, and I look across at the other end of the building, and they put the buildings in. There wasn't a whole lot of forethought. They put them in on asphalt, just dropped them on the asphalt. And I don't think they did a whole lot of site prep or compacting the soil. And the asphalt would fall down and buckle, and there were holes under the building. And there's John Mitch, and he's got this long pole. He had swiped it from physics. It was a wooden pole with a brass tip. That way, if somebody was getting electrocuted, you could pull the wire off them without adding yourself to the circuit. And there's John, and he's digging around under the building. And so I looked over and I said, hey, John, what, are you going fishing? And he goes, yeah, I'm fishing for a skunk. And he had picked up the smell and concluded that there were skunks now living under his classroom. And I don't know what he thought he was going to do with the pole, but he was definitely investigating. So that's the Brad Box skunk story.
Well, there were a lot of fun times. It was a challenge all the time to keep on top of all of that. And there was always the process that I remember the instructors, we always got out early, but because I was working with the data processing, we had to go right up to July 1 for the contracts to be re-established the next year. And I worked with Roy Barletta, who was the Dean of Business, and he was a tremendous guy to work for. And he went along with everything we set up and were very effective at it. When we first started, Fred Bremer was the president, and he was rather strict. In fact, no one was to be on campus really on the weekends. And I had a student. It wasn't my personal student, but he was a student here at Saddleback. And he was a good friend of one of the board of trustees and decided to come to Saddleback instead of going to a university. And he was an incredible student. He had built a colored TV when he was in high school. And he had everything set up. And we hired him to come in, and Fred Bremer let us come on campus on the weekend. And we would work. He was the only student that could come up here. And he set everything up on campus, on the lower campus. We didn't have the library built. Well, then when we built the library, we had to have a little higher powered equipment because it went all the way up the hill. And he presented everything for us and got it all set up. And I remember a lot of the people come in and look at this and they want to know who on earth we got to do all of this. And I told them it was a student, and they couldn't believe it. He was the sharpest student I ever knew that we ever had here. And he went on, and after he was at Saddleback and went to Stanford, and then he worked through Hewlett-Packard. And he used to fly all over. He would go to Texas and everywhere. And I could always count on him. I could call him and he'd come down and make sure all the systems were going. He was a tremendous individual. He then started his own company. He had a company in San Diego and one here in Orange County. And he was just one of the most outstanding students that I ever knew. And so we worked together and got everything set up, and it was, I think people were happy with it.